Good morning. Welcome to another wonderful day in Bangkok. The weather is great again today. It is just after noon on a Sunday. A quiet, relaxed day. Sundays always seem more chilled out than other days, I guess because people are not rushing to and from work. They have more time to walk and sit around doing nothing in particular. As I sit here, there is a wonderful sound. It is the sound of the wind rustling the leaves at the top of the trees. Where I am sitting here in the park, there are many trees surrounding me. And if I look at the top of the trees, I can see the leaves moving, pushed by the wind, and there is this wonderful soothing rustling noise. It makes you just want to lie down and sleep. But I'm not the kind of person who likes to sleep in the daytime, so I'm definitely not going to do that. I have been thinking today about decision making. What brought this idea to mind was Donald Trump and his new presidency and all the new decisions he is making. I'm sure you have heard about the new executive order he gave recently to forbid immigrants from certain Islamic countries from entering the US, which has caused great controversy in the States. And yesterday I heard that a High Court judge in America had made a ruling that this executive order was illegal. Anyway, I didn't want to discuss this particular topic, but how some people are good at making quick decisions, whereas others cannot. I would count myself in the latter. I am hopeless at making quick decisions. I am the kind of person who spends a great deal of time thinking and rarely ever reaches a real conclusion. My philosophy on life is that we never know anything for certain, so the way we should be using our mind and analytical skills is to be constantly questioning our decisions and ideas. So I would be hopeless as a president or a prime minister because I would just take too long to make important decisions. But is it good to be a decisive person? One who has strong beliefs and knows quickly how to react to any situation? I think if I look at my personal life, I think this would be very bad because I would be making hasty decisions which would inevitably get me into hot water. Get me into hot water meaning creates a problem for me. I think mostly the first ideas we get when we are confronted with a choice are probably wrong, and when we have time to reflect on the issue, we will probably make a different choice. When I look back over my life and all the decisions I have made, I can nearly always see some fault with the decisions. I never have the feeling that the choice I made was a perfect one, without any flaws. And I suspect that on my deathbed, I will look back on my life and see almost everything as a mistake in one way or another. So how does this fit in with the necessity we often have of making quick and important choices? I think the people who are good at making quick decisions have strong belief systems and values or morals or religious beliefs, and this is what makes them able to make these very fast choices. But is that the best strategy for us to use in our lives, to have clear and strong beliefs and ideas? Personally, I don't think so, because I think almost everything changes. What we may believe in when we are 20, we may not believe when we are 30, and when we are 40, we will think something else entirely. This is the experience I have had in my life. So I am never confident that what I believe at any moment in time will be lasting. I suspect it will change, and I may find that I have created a trap for myself which is difficult to get out of. For example, I got married when I was quite young, around 21, and divorced at the age of 32. And although there were many pleasant aspects to my marriage and this phase of my life, when I look back on it now, it was definitely not a decision I would still make. The experience I have had since then has caused me to change my ideas about many things, including marriage. I think we have to accept that our thinking is nearly always problematic, in the sense that it may have errors. So how do we deal with this problem when we have important decisions to make? How do we deal with the problem of fallibility, meaning we can never be certain that we are correct at that time? Well, I know no matter what I say here, people will still continue to make bad decisions and set traps for themselves. But let me see if I can make some suggestions. A long time ago, when I lived and worked in London, and I was beginning to think about a major life change, the most important consideration was I needed to live in a hot country for health reasons. At that time I suffered from arthritis and still do, and I realized that for my long-term health, living in a hot country was going to be far better than living in cold, wet England. So this forced me to confront many factors and presented me with what seemed at the time like an extremely complicated choice. Going to live permanently in another country raised all kinds of problems: culture, language, losing contact with family and friends, work, money, just about everything. When you choose to emigrate to a foreign country, you just about change everything in your life. And choosing where to go, I found at that time extremely confusing and difficult to solve this problem. Faced with this enormous decision at the time, I decided to try to simplify it by trying to write down what I thought was really objective and not subjective. Objective is something like language, for example. I know that in another country they speak another language. Subjective is maybe my impressions about Asian culture or Asian people, at that time with little or no experience. So I was able to break down my decision into 2 or 3 fairly practical, objective factors. Weather was one, economic situation in the foreign country. For example, what things cost. What does it cost for a meal, or for a taxi or a bus? And maybe geography. What kind of physical climate I could expect in the new country. Was it tropical, wet? Was it dry like a desert? So rather than anguish over subjective ideas which I could never be sure about and which may well change in the future, I looked purely at the objective factors as far as I could and made my decision based on that. So that's my advice in general in life, is to try to reduce complicated decisions to their simplest form by looking at what is really objective, or what at least you think can be objective, and try to make this the foundation of your decisions. Everything else is open to question, can change, you can change, the environment can change. So trying to figure out subjective things like, will you be happy in this new country? Will you make friends? What are the people like? Will you feel lonely? Will you miss your old country and companions? Put those things aside in favor of the objective factors which you feel are relatively unchangeable. Okay, that's enough for now. Talk to you again soon.